Weyt-kp. In recent years, Canada has begun to reckon with its history of colonialism and the impact of residential schools on Indigenous communities. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation serves as a solemn reminder of the trauma, the loss, and the resilience of Indigenous peoples. Today, I'm profoundly honored to have a conversation with TRU's Secwépemc Cultural Advisor Ted Gottfriedson to gain a deeper understanding of this day's significance within our local community. I hope our conversation will not only illuminate the experience of the Secwépemc people, but will also be a bridge to understanding and give us all a sense of what genuine reconciliation can look like. xwexwéytep, Ted, for joining us today.
xwexwéytep.
As the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation approaches, what emotions or feelings does that bring out for you?
So it's, as you'd said, it's a very solemn day for us. It's one that we've been waiting for a long time. It was one that we didn't even know we were waiting for. You know, my family, we've been basically living with the legacy of residential schools without knowing that there could be more. And the Day of Truth and Reconciliation, that has really shown us that, you know, we are going in a good direction.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe a pivotal moment or experience in your life that solidified the importance of truth and reconciliation for you?
Absolutely. So it was actually the day that we confirmed the Estcwicwéy, the missing children at the residential school in our reserve. That was a very pivotal moment for myself. It really hammered home, you know, the stories that our people told about their time there, and it made it more concrete, more real, more vivid, and it was definitely a turning point for myself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about the significance for the community of Estcwicwéy and the ways in which the community now has the responsibility to honor them.
Yeah, so the whole this whole aspect of you know, we're basically hosting the final resting spot of these children, and it's taken an emotional toll on the community. You know, there's a lot of protocols and things that we take care of that is not widely known. There are things that our protocols dictate that we have to do to make sure that the children are properly cared for, and that they can find their final be at peace, so to speak. I think that our community has done a really good job in that responsibility.
Mm-hmm. There were the Estcwicwéy, the children who went missing, but also all of the children who attended residential schools were affected. What was your own family's experience, and how has it affected you?
So yeah, wow. So our experience was that my grandparents went, my parents went, and all their siblings went. I'm actually I am the first parent in my family in over 100 years that hasn't had to worry about sending their kids to that school. To me, that's a momentous thing. I didn't have to worry about it at all. I didn't have to try and think of an excuse for not sending them. I didn't have to worry about somebody showing up to take them. I'm the first parent in 3 generations of my family that didn't have to worry about that. I think that says a lot for what my family has gone through, and it's not just mine, right? All of our families, you know, it'll be even more generations than mine, right? And it's had a very huge impact. Like Orange Shirt Day or TRC Day is really important, but it's like every day for us is Orange Shirt Day. Everything that we do, the legacy of the residential school permeates every part of our life. We're still dealing with that trauma that our parents went through, and our whole entire community wasn't just a group of people, wasn't just a few select folks. That this is like an entire generation across the board. So it has had a huge impact on on my family and all of our communities, but I can specifically talk about my family. Yeah.
One of the purposes of the residential school was to eliminate the culture and language of the people who went there, and fortunately that did not happen. But what are some of the things that the Secwépemc have done to keep the culture vital and to bring it back?
Yeah. So one of the things that, we as the Secwépemc people and Indigenous folks, we're indebted to those people who went through the residential schools, and we're able to hold on to those, to our language, to our culture, to our way of knowing. That they did that despite insurmountable odds. I can't imagine what they must have went through and how they were able to continue to hold on to that too. I can talk a little bit about my experience trying to learn Secwépemc. It was very hard at the start because you have to find a fluent speaker, a mentor, and there aren't many. And then of those that are left, there are those that don't want to speak the language. They really can't. That there was too much trauma, there was too much grief, too much loss, too much pain, everything, right? And they won't speak it. So that pool of fluent speakers that you can learn from gets shallower. And then of those who will speak it, a lot of those people then aren't comfortable in like an educational type of setting. It's not something that they're really, they've had a good experience with. So then that, so finding someone who can speak the language, finding someone who's willing to speak the language, finding someone who's willing to teach is really a difficult task. We have some very strong Secwépemc elders who've held on to that. And so it's been a bit hard at the start, but currently our Secwépemc people are, within the Kamloops, we have an immersion program for young adults. We've had 2 years where the young adults have been learning Secwépemc from 9 to 3:30, 5 days a week, and so they've come a long way. And it's a really bright spot for us, for our language, for our culture. I'm very proud of that group. They really are a bright spot. And the other thing I'd like to mention about not only that group and what they've learned, but where they've learned it is in the former residential school. When the school was closed in the 70s, our community met and discussed, what to do with it, to tear it down or to leave it standing. And at that time, there were still a lot of survivors, and they spoke quite passionately about tearing it down, about leaving it up. And it went, our people voted, and the stance was to leave it up and to flip it into a place of learning, taking back our language and culture. And so it was a very strong statement on the part of those survivors and our community that we can turn this, we can flip it.
One of the first things housed in that building was TRU in our early years as Caribou College.
Yeah, that's right. It's always been I know that I've heard historically our historical chief, Chief Louis, he understood the importance of education back in the 1800s. And he wanted to have a school, not this kind, but he believed in educating our children. So education has always been very important to our people.
Mm-hmm. As we come to a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, I want to ask you about the phrase truth and reconciliation. So those are two different words, two different concepts, but they go together in this case. What's the relationship between truth and reconciliation?
Wow. So the truth is really hard for a lot of people. And I think that is the first step we have to take, is to understand the truth, to accept the truth, and to learn from the truth. Well, that's something that is in my former position within my community. I had to deal with a lot of those questions about the integrity of the findings, and it showed me that there are a lot of Canadians who are still not ready for the truth. They want to find fault. They want it not to be real, and that's, you know, that's going to be crucial if we want to reconcile with each other, our history, and where we are today, where it's brought us to, and if we want to change it for our kids and our grandkids. Xwexwéytep is a word we use in our language to mean those yet to come. So we do work for those yet to come. So for me, truth and reconciliation, there's two hands and a body. They need them. You got to have them both.
Are there any messages or teachings that you'd like to pass on to the younger generations of Secwépemc and other Indigenous youth about the significance of this day?
Absolutely. I think the significance of this day, this is our Remembrance Day for those kids that went there, for our elders who came out. This is our time to remember them, appreciate what they've done, and to say some prayers for those kids that are buried there. I think the other part, this kind of goes more towards reconciliation, and that is for us as Indigenous people, we need to reconcile within ourselves as well. We need to come to terms with what has happened, and that happens through healing. You know, mental health is not really much of a topic spoken about in our homes. But we need to understand what it is to be mentally healthy, truly happy, and I think for myself, one of the biggest things that's helped me get there is obviously my family, the support of my family, but the language and the culture of our people has been one of the best, most in-depth ways I've been able to learn about myself, learn a little bit about what it is to be happy, and to be a more fuller human being.
A minute ago, Ted, you mentioned that there are non-Indigenous Canadians who don't want to believe that it was true. I'm wondering whether over the years you've noticed any shift in the attitude of non-Indigenous Canadians and their willingness to engage with the history of residential schools.
Absolutely. Having said, yeah, there are those that don't want to accept the truth, but they always seem to be a small, very vocal minority, right? Because on the whole, I've seen a lot of good. I've been able to be a part of many things where non-Indigenous Canadians have come forward, and they've come to the site. They've come to where the kids are. They've been a part of our healing, and because we heal, everybody heals, right? I've seen that, and I firmly believe in what has happened since Estcwicwéy. We're confirmed.
Looking forward, what are your hopes for the future of the Secwépemc and the relationship with non-Indigenous Canadians?
Well, I think it's best laid out in the 1910 Sir Wilfrid Laurier Memorial. Our leaders at that time expressed the desire to be brothers, neighbors, friends. That they said it very succinctly in their statement, and I would recommend to folks to have a look at that. That lays out everything that our people want and have wanted since BC became a province. I think we can really move towards being good neighbors, and I think that understanding, where we have been as a country and as a people, because at the end of the day, we're all Canadians. I know there are Indigenous folks that don't want to identify as Canadian. That history of colonialism has really been difficult and violent for our people, and understandably, there's a lot that don't want to be Canadian. But having said that, we are. I have a Canadian passport, and I want to do the best I can where I am, and that involves reconciliation for me in forgiving, right? Forgiving what has happened to us, forgiving us for how we've responded to ourselves, the violence we've done to each other. There's a lot of work to be done.
You mentioned the 1910 memorial to Sir Wilfrid Laurier. It's a very powerful document, and it discusses the difference between settlers who were respectful, who were good neighbors, as you mentioned, and who weren't. What guidelines do you think people today could take from there about what it means to be a good neighbor, a good resident on these lands?
Absolutely, that's respect. I think respect is one of the primary foundations of our society, our people, and of Canada, is to be respectful. I think that, if we're able to reconcile and we're able to learn that respect, we can apply reconciliation to other parts of our lives. We can reconcile with the treatment of new Canadians. Immigrants, right? That needs to happen as well. We can look at respecting those new Canadians. We can respect Canadians who've been here for a long time. We can respect, and I think one of the things that reconciliation can help us do is respect the land more. I think that's one of the big things that we're seeing now as the result of not respecting the land and the problems it's creating for us that we've done to ourselves. I think if we had more of a connection, so if we reconciled with the people who are here, we're able to understand where they come from, you can learn the way they view the place they live, and you can apply that. That's reconciliation, because we need to take care of where we are. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Ted, about what non-Indigenous Canadians can do, maybe on the Day for Truth and Reconciliation, to work towards reconciliation?
Yeah, I think one is to educate themselves. I'll read up on it. Read up on, if you live in Kamloops, read up about what's happened here. And then you can broaden that and look at how has it affected the Secwépemc people, right? Because we had 2 residential schools in our territory, right here and Williams Lake. So read up on that. Find out the history of those places. Find out more about the people where you live, the Indigenous people. That's something that's really important, and steps have been taken for Canada in general to do that in those territorial acknowledgements, right? You're acknowledging who was there. That's an important step. You need to know in whose territory are you. That's an important part of reconciliation as well.
Well, it's been your words have been very insightful, and I've really been honored to be in this conversation. xwexwéytep, Ted.
xwexwéytep, Brett.
To wrap up, I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to Ted for sharing his invaluable insights and his personal narrative. His perspective underscores the importance of understanding, of empathy, and of collective action. The journey to truth and reconciliation is an ongoing one, and hopefully it's through dialogues like this that we can make meaningful strides forward together.